Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final event in the Provincial Leaders Speaker Series presented by Manulife. My name is Ian McLean, and I'm the President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we do live and work on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples, as we seek a renewed relationship based on a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. As participants in today's event, we are coming together as one. We believe everyone is free to be their true self and receive the same respect and opportunity regardless of age, ethnicity, gender, culture, identity, sexual orientation, beliefs, or language. We hope you'll join us in fostering a positive environment here today to ensure a safe and welcoming space for all. I'd like to take a moment, as always with chamber events, and Minister would know this, we wouldn't be able to do these things if it wasn't for our partners and sponsors. So for today's event, I'd like to be giving some appreciation and thanks to our title sponsor, Manulife. Our prestige sponsor today is Deloitte. Our platinum sponsor is Google. Silver sponsor, Clack. Bronze sponsor, the KW Association of Realtors. And our event partner, the Guelph Chamber of Commerce. And thank you to our hosts here at the Inn of Waterloo for your hospitality. Please join us in thanking these incredible partners for those that are joining us online. And I'd also like to just say I very much appreciate the Minister making time for us. It's been an incredibly busy period of time in the lead up to the election. So thank you to you for fitting this into your schedule. And we've been very pleased to have the leaders of the other parties and now a senior cabinet minister from the government to help us understand the views of the parties as we start thinking about the provincial election. So on behalf of Manulife, I do want to introduce my good friend Monte McNaughton. He is Minister McNaughton is Ontario's Minister of Labour, Training and Skills Development and Immigration Issues, I believe. Having grown up serving hardworking people at his family's home hardware store in Newbury. We know something about home hardware here in Waterloo and Willage Township. Minister McNaughton knows the value of a hard day's work and the important role blue-collar women and men play in building a stronger Ontario. Having the backs of workers, helping them bring home bigger paychecks and spreading community widely has been the top priority for Minister McNaughton since he was appointed as Minister of Labour in June of 2019. Minister McNaughton introduced the Building Opportunities in Skilled Trades Act, which we're very thankful for, and it is tremendously needed to modernize the skilled trade system. His Working for Workers Act is aimed at making Ontario the best place for people to live, work, and raise a family. And prior to his current portfolio, Minister McNaughton was Minister of Infrastructure, which I think we'll touch on a little bit through our conversation. And since 2011, when he was about 4 years old, he was proudly served as the MPP for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex. A graduate of Westerville Business College in London, he later completed executive programs at the Richard Ivey School of Business at Western Ontario. Minister McNaughton and his wife, Kate, currently live in Mount Bridges, Ontario with their daughter, Annie. And I see her on social media all the time. Thank goodness she looks like her mother. Yeah. Please join me in welcoming Minister McNaughton. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for being here today.
Listen, before we I've got some questions for you. We had just had a few minutes or about an hour of roundtable with some industry leaders and business community leaders to share, have a dialogue on various things. But why don't you start with, any opening comments you have? I mean, we're coming up to an election. You've had 4 years in government. Reflections on that and where we go as a province.
Yeah, well, certainly. Thanks very much for this opportunity. We did have a great roundtable before this one-on-one session, and it was great to hear some of the issues, challenges, and hopes of businesses and our labor partners here in the local community. Being in the KW region for me is almost like being at home. We spend a lot of time here. My riding is just west of London, so it's great being in southwestern Ontario. First, I want to say thanks to everyone. I know the last 2 years has obviously been challenging for your places of work and for your workers and families, but we've really come so far as a province, and there's good days and good times ahead for everyone in the province as we come out of the pandemic. Premier Ford and our team is really focused on building the future of Ontario. We had a great announcement today in the Kitchener-Waterloo region. I know MPP Mike Harris was there, the Minister of Health, to announce another step forward to a new hospital here in the community, which will be great news for families, great for all of those tradespeople that's going to be building the hospital. And, we're not done there. We're expanding GO Rail service to family members in this community. We're ensuring that everyone by the year 2025 has access to high-speed broadband. I think of the investments we've made and we continue to make to expand natural gas to more remote communities across the province just outside of Kitchener-Waterloo. So there's a lot of great things happening on the building front. And you alluded to it in the beginning, but we really are ensuring that we're protecting workers across the province. We've done a lot of work over the last couple of years. You mentioned the building opportunities in the Skilled Trades Act to really get more young people to consider careers in the skilled trades, to end the stigma around the trades, to ensure that parents and educators and young people know that these are first career choices for people. We're simplifying the apprenticeship system, and we're encouraging employers to bring on more apprentices. So a lot of work happening on that front, and I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about that. And then we have introduced 2 Working for Workers acts in the province to ensure that workers are getting bigger paychecks, have more health and safety protections, and have greater opportunities for better jobs. And I just want to highlight, we had a great morning here in the Kitchener-Waterloo region. We started today at KW Habilitation, where we announced a really amazing, innovative training project to help 40 people with developmental disabilities find meaningful work in retail. And it's great to hear and see all the amazing employers in the community here. 20 employers have guaranteed these 40 people well-paying jobs in retail. So these are the innovative projects that we're doing to try to resolve the labor shortages and ensure that everyone can have access to meaningful jobs. And then after that, we had a great tour at CLAC's Training Center to see a lot of young people who are beginning in the trades at their pre-trades program. And they're doing great work. So it really is all hands on deck to fill labor shortages, get more people into the trades, and to build back a stronger province for everyone.
Well, appreciate those comments. And I want to start with, and we're going to dig in some of the specific things in your portfolio. I said to you before, I worked at WSIB years ago, which the Minister of Labor is responsible for WSIB. But you've really made the labor ministry more of an economic ministry than it has been before, with your additional responsibilities in skills development and then also immigration. And so it's great to see that labor issues and talent issues are front of mind for every business these days. I mean, there's shortages in every sector, and so making some of these changes is going to make a difference. But before we do, I mean, you mentioned COVID. We are coming, there's still a lot of COVID out there. We're coming to the end of this wave, and there will be more bumps along the way. And I guess one of the questions that many businesses have, and that I chair the Business Economic Support Team of Waterloo Region, which is the 2 chambers of commerce, Communitech, Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, and Explore Waterloo, which is hospitality and tourism. The one thing we all absolutely agree on is we cannot have any more lockdowns. Businesses cannot survive any more lockdowns. But having said that, we have to have the right tools available for businesses and individuals to choose to make sure they are. So I'm thinking of the work that our chambers have done in piloting the rapid antigen screening kits, and your government has funded, which is amazing. The rapid or vax verification, which is not obligatory anymore, but is still in place for businesses that choose to use it. I guess maybe the question that springs to mind is, reopening isn't recovery for everybody. There's still going to be some blips along the way of COVID, but the plan for reopening involves the safety of individuals, workers, and the province, and protecting healthcare. Is that, and will that mean that there's decisions that need to be made are going to be in the best interest of making sure that we protect our communities.
Well, look, we've come a long ways since the pandemic first hit the province. We have a plan as a government to ensure that we stay open. And that's crucial to the well-being of people and of businesses. I mean, I think of what we've done in our ministry. We've really focused on health and safety to ensure that we keep workers safe, keep workplaces open. And one of the approaches that I've taken to health and safety inspections, for example, is to ensure that we educate employers. I mean, I'm a big believer that the overwhelming majority of employers do a great job from a health and safety front. And we've gone out with this education first approach. I mean, COVID was new for everyone. And we were really there to support businesses and workers. During the last couple of years, we've hired 100 more health and safety inspectors, which actually brings it to the highest in provincial history. But we're working with businesses to keep workplaces safe. But our plan in building the future of the province is to build more hospitals. We're building more long-term care homes. We're building capacity in the healthcare system. I think of our recruitment and training of 27,000 new PSWs, the hiring and training of more than 2,000 nurses. We're expanding our medical schools to hire hundreds of new doctors for the first time in more than a decade in the province to, again, just build back a stronger healthcare system to deal with any of the challenges going ahead. Look, there's lots of tools in the toolbox for people. We need people to keep safety in mind and do, take personal responsibility. But again, we'll continue to work together, but our plan is to stay open.
And you referenced the announcement today, but I want to go back to all-day two-way go. And as you know, you've been on a radio show with Greg and I before. Every time you came through here for many years, for the certainly last 3 or 4 years, we would talk about all-day two-way go, and we needed that. The government's delivered on that. I was telling you just before that the update we've got is that a lot of the infrastructure improvements have been made along the Toronto-Kitchener corridor, and that's allowing train times, trip times to go down by as much as 20 minutes now. So I guess it's kudos. That was the ethanol pledge that anyone who came through Waterloo Region for about 5 or 7 years needed to make, which is commitment to that. So kudos. And congratulations, because what it does mean is as we start to open up the economy, we know that there's more trips actually coming from Kitchener or from Toronto to Kitchener than the other way. So having it moving both ways is tremendously important and allows us to, especially in this manufacturing sector, hub that we're in, is moving our goods to market and moving people on trains. So it's been it's appreciated. I think we often don't say thank you enough, but that was a tremendous announcement that Minister Mulroney made and the government has made, and it's making a difference and will as we come into recovery.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, here I've heard that for years in the KW region, how important two-way all-day go service is for families here, for the business community, for workers. But we're just getting started. I think in terms of our infrastructure spend, I mean, $148 billion over the next 10 years, and that's just public sector infrastructure. So we're building roads, we're building highways, we're building bridges. My very first announcement after becoming Minister of Infrastructure under Premier Ford was a bridge out in Woolwich Township. Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing just how life-changing a piece of infrastructure like a bridge can be for families, because it took it from a single lane bridge to a double lane bridge, and it really opened up the community on the one side of the bridge. So we've got a lot happening on the infrastructure side. We announced this week the expansion of GO Rail, mm-hmm. So even more on the electrification front, which is going to speed up trains. I mean, if there is one thing that Premier Ford is going to be known for in history, it is building more infrastructure, getting the job done, on that front than any government in the history of this province.
Well, a good segue, and we didn't tee this up, but the announcement today, and I think you may have referenced it this morning at Grand River Hospital, between St. Mary's General Hospital and Grand River. Minister Elliott was in town. I think you said Mike Harris was at the event, which is funding for the next stage, because we know that we haven't had a new hospital. We've had a renovation at Cambridge Memorial, which is very important, but we haven't had a new hospital built here in over 55 years, 60 years actually. So the announcement today, and I guess it feeds into that, in what are the pieces that we're investing in? Healthcare, we know, has been under stress because of COVID, and especially in this part of the world, population growth, it's an economic driver, and we need both the education and the talent that we can get from this region, but healthcare is on top of everyone's mind. So, I mean, without being specific to this region, because I think the announcement today indicates the sense of urgency that the government understands that this region has for a new hospital, but there's a lot more around the province. And in that $148 billion you're talking about a wide swath of infrastructure. So maybe kind of touch on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, this announcement today by Minister Elliott certainly highlights the importance of this project for our government and to ensure that we're investing in the Kitchener-Waterloo region. But the list goes on and on. I mean, I mentioned the highways and the roads and the bridges. The broadband component is, really going to be life-changing for people. They can live anywhere and work from home, which is, incredible. Back to my first year as the Minister of Infrastructure, I mean, we tabled the first broadband expansion plan back in 2018, and it was a $400 million pandemic. We're now investing over $4 billion because, the pandemic highlighted the importance of ensuring that every single home and business in the province has access to broadband, and it's the largest expansion in Canadian history on the broadband front. So we're moving very aggressively on that, but we're not slowing down. I mean, you talk about $148 billion over 10 years. Again, that's just on the public sector side. We know that there's a lot happening on the private sector side where I come from, and I'm going to be there tomorrow morning down in Sarnia, the Nova Chemical project. And I know there's people in the Waterloo region, tradespeople that are working down there, but this is a $2 billion investment. And I think of the Bruce Power Plant. I mean, there's just investment after investment. There's more people working in the province, which obviously creates challenges from a labor shortage standpoint, but we're moving in the right direction, and there's good days ahead.
So building on that, there's been great announcement around the stake that the Premier and your government has laid in electric vehicles, and the announcement, battery plant in Windsor, I think it's Windsor, Essex. So when we think about what's good for the environment, what's good for our electric system or grid system, we know that we have climate goals that we need to meet. One of the things I said to you this before is, so when we talk about we're going to have new electric vehicles, and the car makers themselves want to get there, but right now there's 50 that the car makers themselves, it would require 3 million or in thereabouts charging stations. So there's infrastructure issues when you talk about want to do the right thing for the environment and climate change. Also want to make sure we have appropriate power generation, the right mix, the hydro, the delivery system. There's a big complexity here. So I guess the question, business, do we have all the right people at the table, like from industry and academia as well as government, to really make those big things happen?
Well, certainly. I mean, I think we've seen such great announcements over the last few weeks. I mean, you highlighted the EV battery plant. I mean, we made a decision to invest in manufacturing and getting production here to Ontario. I think of the General Motors Oshawa plant that was, closed. Now it's reopening with a number of shifts and new models to be built, electric vehicles there. I think of CAMI down not too far from here, between here and London. I mean, they're adding more production on the electric vehicle front. So there's a lot happening on this front. Specifically with the Windsor-Essex plant, they're going to be hiring 2,500 people. But the amazing thing is now with this new technology is it's going to benefit all the regions of the province. So we think of our minerals in Northern Ontario, that's going to those people that are working at those mines are going to benefit from this new manufacturing. I think of the business hubs and headquarters in the GTA and the Waterloo region. So it really is going to benefit all of the province. Certainly there's challenges. I know where we just made an announcement to expand the grid in Ontario to get more power down to southwestern Ontario in preparation of the new factory and the greenhouse development that's happening down there. But it really is all hands on deck and everybody's around the table working together, which is important.
I want to move to housing, and we're all hearing about it, housing affordability. I know the government's made some announcements around, in the places, no, not places to grow. I forget what the act's name is, but changes in how we're able to make new buildings, more density, and giving more flexibility to industry. And I guess the question is, and we had Tanya from KW Association of Realtors in our discussion. There were a couple of things that got raised there where it's saying as of right, and that was not included, but there have been some changes that are going to help. And there's a lot of things that need to happen to make sure there's more choice for people in housing, and that there is more affordability in housing. And it's incredibly important for every community. I mean, we need to have, if we're going to maintain and recruit and retain talent, housing is a huge issue for every community.
I mean, center and a top priority for our government to get literally millions of new homes built over the next decade here in the province of Ontario. Every community is impacted right now by housing prices, and it is challenging. I think, from my perspective, one of the things we're focusing on is ensuring that we have enough tradespeople to build the homes of the future. We had a great partnership yesterday. We announced with the Home Builders Association in the Niagara region. They're recruiting 80 roofers and drywall installers. I mean, there's a shortage across every single trade. So that's what we're bringing from our ministry to the table is this focus on getting more people into the trades. They're meaningful, exciting, lucrative careers, often with pensions and benefits. And these are the types of careers we need to promote with young people and parents. But there's a lot of work being done on the housing affordability front. But the goal of getting millions of new homes built, knocking down red tape, because that's certainly a huge barrier here in Ontario, and really offering incentives to municipalities to approve projects and get shovels in the ground, I think it's going to make a big difference. In
those urban areas, I think what it's called the missing middle, where you can take and get some more density in what was low-rise residential areas, is one of those issues that it's not an issue in more rural or smaller communities. It certainly is in built-up areas, but we run into the same issue that if you're going to have more infill or more density built, you still run into the same challenge of, is there enough people to actually build, knock down and build something, whether it's infill in Toronto or whether it's greenfield in Chatham. That is a huge issue, but it is one that is on the minds of people, because affordability it's almost taking home ownership out of the possibility for many Ontarians.
Well, certainly, and I think of the businesses out there that want to attract employees. The first question is there houses that are affordable for people? So that's why it's such a priority for Premier Ford and our government to ensure that we have houses that people can afford. And we need to move mountains to get homes built much more quickly, and we're doing that.
As you think about innovation and in this region, obviously, Communitech, there's lots of startups, there's lots of innovators here in the region of Waterloo. Procurement for not just in the startup sector, but for many small businesses has always been a challenge. to gain access for that small and medium-sized business that's looking for its first contract. You were infrastructure minister, and so you had some dealing with procurement. I know the government is focused on it because certainly hear about it from businesses. What they're really asking for business, just want to have a level playing field, that whether you're a small business or a large business, that an Ontario-based business has the same ability and a fair chance at getting government contracts, because that can make the difference. That can be life-changing for a small business to have the gold standard, if you will, of having done a contract for the Ontario government. Maybe talk a little bit about that to not only on the infrastructure, which is the big part, but that also has all of the trickle-down effect for procurement, which creates Ontario jobs for Ontario businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need small and medium-sized businesses to be able to bid on government projects and procurement. I mean, I think of the government when they would buy and printing paper and different supplies. In the past, small businesses were not able to bid on that, and we did set up a one-window portal for small businesses and all businesses to bid on supplying government with products. And I know there's been some early success. I think it's led through the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, but it's one of the changes that we made in the last couple of years to really help Ontario-based businesses win contracts from the government. And it's something that's going to continue.
We talked about housing, but I wanted to go back to investment-ready land. I mean, Tony Lamontillo is our president and CEO of the Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, and is obviously deep interested and connected with not only the battery plant in Windsor, but it's going to have spin-offs, and other investments are going to be made by other tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers in the auto space, amongst other things. But getting, and I think you mentioned an example which I found staggering, of getting projects approved in, I think it was a southern state, in a matter of months as opposed to sometimes years. That is a big issue for those that are trying to get foreign direct investment, whether it's here or anywhere across the province. But foreign direct investment to come and invest capital and create jobs, whether it's manufacturing, technology, food processing, take your pick. I think you'd mentioned in our other session that there was some things that were being done to make sure that we speed of getting lands shovel ready and available, and incenting municipalities to do it faster.
Yeah, I mean, it's all hands on deck to speed up the process. The example I was told in the last week, I met a gentleman who builds high-rise residential, and he was telling me in the southern states, a 50-story high-rise can be approved, guaranteed within 90 days. I mean, think of some housing developments here in Ontario where it's taking literally years to get approvals. I mean, it's crazy. It's that bureaucracy. It's the red tape that we have to knock down, and that's what we're doing under the leadership of Minister Steve Clark, who's doing great work on that front. When it comes to lands being available for automotive plants, electric vehicle plants, Vic Fideli at the Ministry of Economic Development is doing a lot of work on that front, making a lot of changes to speed up that process. And I know we made some historic announcements in recent weeks, and there's more good news to come.
That's great. I want to focus a bit on your ministry, because it touches on a number of economic issues which are tremendously important to the region of Waterloo here, and I think more broadly southwestern Ontario, and that's around talent. So the immigration side, we know we're one of the top 3 or 4 final locations for immigrants to Canada. So we're a magnet for immigrants here, and that's good, because all that new employment, we're already probably there, but pretty soon is going to come from immigrants and newcomers to our community. It's why we do a lot of work with the Immigration Partnership of Waterloo Region, and we're very engaged with how we welcome and engage newcomers to our community. Maybe talk about that side of it, because you've got, and I think this is where people are saying we need, we can do a better job of, and we've had a couple of years where we really haven't had a lot of immigration because of COVID. We need to get back to that, but we also need to, we have specific needs we need now. How are you going to manage that in terms of, it's a federal responsibility, but there's a provincial role to that? Talk a little bit about that side.
Yeah, I mean, immigration, we need to use it more strategically to fill labor shortages. So there's a number of things on this front. In our Working for Workers Act in the fall that we passed, we became the first province in the country to recognize international credentials. So if you're in the skilled trades, if you're an engineer, an architect, we've eliminated the Canadian work experience, so you can get into your profession of choice much more quickly. And keep in mind, only 25% of immigrants in the province today are actually working in fields that they've studied for. So there's a huge opportunity, and these people are already here in Ontario. I've said, many times this should have been done decades ago, but governments would not take on those regulatory bodies to make this happen. We did that. We got that done. Secondly, Ontario today has responsibility to select about 9,000 immigrants through the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. About 18 months ago, I prioritized healthcare workers and skilled trades workers. We've asked the federal government this year to double that to 18,000. We've not yet heard back on that. So anyone watching from home or your office or in this room, please lobby the federal government, the MP, because that is a really quick fix for some of the shortages that we have. Secondly, the Ontario-Canada Immigration Agreement expires at the end of this year in the fall. We will be renegotiating that deal. We've already laid out the groundwork for the changes that we want to see as a province. We want to see more of a Quebec-style immigration system here in Ontario, although ours will be focused on economic immigration versus a cultural side that they have in Quebec. But it makes sense for the province to have a more of a say over the selection process, because we have all of the data based on community of those jobs that are going unfilled. In March of 2020, 200,000 jobs are going unfilled in the province. Today, it's 340,000. In the Kitchener-Waterloo economic region, 35,000 jobs today are going unfilled. I mean, it is costing the Ontario economy billions and billions of dollars. That's why it's important to use immigration more strategically, but also to move more quickly on recognizing international credentials. The other component that I think is important is we're also now allowing at a much more faster speed to allow skilled workers from other provinces to come to Ontario. So we're guaranteeing them within 30 days, if you're a boilermaker, if you're a carpenter, if you're in one of these other trades, that you can come to Ontario and essentially start work overnight. It took, in some cases, up to a year. If you were in British Columbia or Alberta, wanted to come to Ontario, it might be a year before you're allowed to work in the province, and that's within our own border. So we are moving quickly to knock down all of these barriers.
Well, that red tape reductions, but that issue of inter-Canadian transfer of talent is a big one. But let's focus on the part that I think is really important in the short term, which is putting the talent to use that we have here, whether it's immigration. Now, one of the ways that we talked about this before was you have and we have been part of Access Student Talent, which is through Business Higher Education Roundtable, to try and get small and medium-sized businesses more connected with university and college students, giving them a 2-week or 3-week experiential learning opportunity. Because we got to get more small businesses to understand that there's opportunities for them to hire students and use that talent stream as well as immigrants. You referenced one of the things that you're doing with this, I think it's the Skills Ready or Skills Development Ready program. Maybe describe that, because what I liked in your answer was that it's really saying who's going to be able to access that is actually driven by the market, not by government saying here's the types of program. It could be by bureaucrats. It's actually coming from industry.
Yeah, I'm really proud of this. So what we've done, we created something called the Skills Development Fund. And it can't be led by a college, it can't be led by a university, but it can be led by unions, it can be led by businesses, it can be trade associations in partnership with training providers like a college or university or private career college. But it's really to seek innovative training projects to support small and medium-sized businesses in every different sector of our economy. So the one that we announced today to get 40 kids with developmental disabilities into jobs in retail, and there's a huge labor shortage in that field, that came from the Skills Development Fund. I think of the announcement with the home builders the other day. I mean, that was a partnership between Niagara College and the Niagara people into the trades. We've done a lot of work with the auto parts manufacturers to get thousands of people to fill positions in manufacturing jobs. I mean, a lot of these jobs are well paying. I mean, often with pensions and benefits. And this is, you know, we talk about bigger paychecks and more health and safety protections, but the third pillar of everything we're doing is to give people greater opportunities for better jobs and to ensure that people can have that upward mobility and advancement and
the WSIB changes as
Right.
well.
Yes. So it wasn't that long ago. I mean, about a decade ago, the WSIB, quite frankly, was on the brink of bankruptcy. I mean, a huge unfunded liability. I credit Elizabeth Whitmer for her leadership at the WSIB. I mean, really turned the organization around. We made a number of changes since forming government to improve the system. So a number of things we've done. We have appointed a new leadership. I wanted to bring in private sector experience. So we have a new board chair from the private sector. We have a new president of the WSIB that helped run one of Canada's largest private sector insurance companies, just to bring that discipline to the organization. And then we're looking at a whole host of things. I mean, I want to see how we can better utilize the real estate portfolio of the WSIB. I mean, it's at 200 Front Street in Toronto. I mean, a call center with 3,000 people at one of the most expensive buildings in the entire country. I think there's opportunities there. I think of the surplus now that we have at the WSIB. I mean, months ago, it was $6.1 billion in surplus. That money belongs to the businesses that paid the premiums and to be there for workers who are injured. So this month, hundreds of thousands of businesses are receiving checks totaling $1.5 billion in total to safe employers as a rebate check. And I know that many businesses in the community here have received those checks or rebates. 95% of the money is going to small businesses, which is good. So that'll be a good cash injection. And then this week we did announce that we're going to move to increase compensation for those injured workers from 85 to 90% of what they were earning before they were injured. So we're in a good, sustainable position at the WSIB. We're going to drive more change, find more efficiencies, run it more like an insurance company should be run. But the goal is to build a better system for workers and employers.
Well, little known secret, I think I mentioned this before. I worked at the WSAB for 7 years, and when I first arrived in the chair's office with my boss, we were about 7.6 on the other side of that equation. Like, so it seems to be a common pattern that it takes a conservative government to fix WSIB, but I'll leave that there. We only have a few minutes left. I wanted to, and maybe this is. You've now been, I think it's 2011. You've been in the game a long time. What's changed over those 10 or 11 years? I mean, it feels to me, and I've been around politics. My dad was changed for you.
Well, certainly. I mean, there's a big difference between being an opposition MPP and being in government, and then, of course, throw in a global pandemic that happens about once every 100 years. So certainly that changes things. I think, really one of the benefits coming out of this pandemic and really being through the last 2 years is that we've seen people stepping up, businesses stepping up to help one another, neighbors helping neighbors. I mean, that's, I think, one of the greatest things we all remember in the early days, people banging their pots and pans to support healthcare workers. I mean, that was a positive thing coming out of the pandemic. And then I think of the different levels of government working together. And that's one thing that I want to see continue going forward. I mean, I'm speaking on a regular basis with the Federal Minister of Immigration, Sean Fraser, advocating for Ontario's position to give us more control over immigration. But even on the Ukrainian issue, the heartbreaking stories we're seeing out of Ukraine, I mean, the federal government and provincial government really is working together on that front. And on that note, it's been great to see employers, labor partners, places like the Chamber of Commerce and other associations stepping up to offer employment opportunities for Ukrainian refugees when they get here. But, working together, businesses, people, workers, and all different levels of government is, I think, a positive thing coming out of the pandemic and something that we didn't see always in the last 10 years.
Well, I would just say that I know it's going to be, elections are by definition rough and tumble, but I hope everyone, it takes a little page of your book, which is you got your views, but you never personalize it, because have made a point, which I think is, and you've heard that this morning from various stakeholders that have worked in your department, is working together with everyone is just, that's table stakes. We have to all be in this together. So I hope after the election, tools down, and make sure you take advantage of the relationships you have here with the chamber, but also the public sector, academia. We're all here to help out. Listen, we're just about out of time. Any closing comments? And I give you the floor just for a minute to just wrap things up.
Great. I just want to say thanks to the Chamber of Commerce. Before I was elected in 2011, I was actually the president of my local Chamber of Commerce in Strathroy. You do a great job advocating on behalf of businesses in your community. So keep up the great work. We've done a lot of great things over the last few years. And the Chamber just gives great advice to the government and puts a lot of ideas out there, which is really, really helpful. So keep up the good work. And to everyone watching and here today, thanks for everything. We look forward to building Ontario together. A lot of great, exciting things happening, and the best is yet to come for the province.
Listen, that's all the time we have today. We got two parting gifts for you today. One you're going to appreciate, the other one not. Dana's got a little basket from Dana Short Gourmet, and that's a local small business with lots of homemade and snacks. It may not make it all the way back to Sarnia to your riding, but it'll be good for the car. The second thing is an open invitation to join Greg and I on Business to Business on 570 News anytime you want, because you're one of our best guests, actually. And so we'd love to have you on, actually, to talk about some of your labor announcements. So I'll negotiate with your team on that.
Happy to do that, and thank you so much for the gift. I love mustard, and maybe one of my secrets is I'm a spam eater, and mustard will go really well with spam.
You'd have to have mustard for that. There's no question about it. Listen, thanks so much. Again, just before we conclude today, I want to thank our today's sponsors, our title sponsor, Manulife, prestige sponsor, Deloitte, platinum sponsor is Google, silver sponsor, Clack, our bronze sponsor, the KW Association of Realtors, our event partner, the Guelph Chamber of Commerce, and our hosts here today, the Inn of Waterloo. And of course, a special thanks to all of you for attending both in person and virtually today, and your continued support for the Chamber and making these events possible. This wraps up our Provincial Leader Speaker Series. However, we do have a full schedule of events coming up, including local candidate forums in May, for the provincial election, and the remainder of the Federal Leaders Speaker Series over the next couple of months. All the details and registration can be found at greaterkwchamber.com. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a great day.